Hey, Lucy and Simon, it is William calling from Wee Wee Blogs. How are you?
Good. Ready to talk about the grand final of Eurovision, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
the longer you get through the week, the more sleep you actually get to retrieve from the sleep we didn't get in Basel. So feeling better.
Yeah, hopefully we're more coherent now than we were in semifinal one and semifinal two. In any case, should we talk about it?
Let's
Let's
do
Let's
do
do
this.
this.
this. Okay, you guys, we are frequently going to refer to the jury public vote split. Of course, in the grand final, 50% of the score comes from the jury. Those are music professionals. And the other 50% comes from the public. And there were some huge disparities. But just so we're all starting on the same page, let's quickly review the rankings from 1 to 26 overall. Austria was your winner, followed by Israel, Estonia, Sweden, Italy, Greece, France, Albania, Ukraine, and Switzerland, rounding out the top 10. And then we had Finland, the Netherlands, Latvia, Poland, Germany, Lithuania, Malta, Norway, the United Kingdom, and Armenia, wrapping out the top 20. And then your bottom six were Portugal, Luxembourg, Denmark, Spain, Iceland, and San Marino. All right, you guys, where to even begin? Just for the sake of keeping things ordered, let's look at who the jury helped the most. The jury gave Switzerland 214 points compared to the public's zero. Lucy, first thoughts.
I mean, crime of the decade so far, I think. I think in Wee Wee Jury, I gave Switzerland 5 out of 10. And then when I saw the performance, I was like, no, this is a 9. This is exceptional. Like, it grew on me so much. And I cannot fathom that the public, me who doesn't even like ballads, how did the public then watch that? People who are more prone to ballads and not think, oh my goodness. Like the casuals I was viewing with were kind of like, this is boring. I was like, what? What? Where? How? How is this boring? It's beautiful. And like that moment at the end, I remember when we were talking with Zoe at the House of Helvetia, kind of backstage, she was just saying, like, somebody asked, like, how does it feel when you go out with all those lights? She said it just feels like a big hug. And it looked like that when you watched it. It was so gorgeous. And that chaotic, like, da, 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 scene, like, it was incredibly well done. I actually think it's a similar ish effect to Barbara Pravi. And I kind of preferred this version. I cannot get over this being zero with the public. I did think she was going to win the jury, so I didn't think that was far off. But the public vote is nothing short of a scandal. Scandal. That's all I have to say on that matter.
Simon.
Yeah, I mean it was always bound to not get as much public support as a jury support. What I most got it for about this is actually because I remember when we talked about Switzerland in another video, we said this is a kind of an entry that only a host entry or a Big Five country can afford to put forward because we know it won't have that public appeal. So you couldn't have taken a risk by having it in a semi-final with the risk of not going through. And I mean, had this gotten 0 points in the semi-final, it wouldn't have been in the final. So I'm gutted for the broadcasters who are looking at this result, thinking, we cannot put a ballot forward, a tender ballot forward, if we have to go through the semifinals, because apparently the public won't really latch onto that. But I mean, you have the other end of the scale with the reverse, which is also a ballot. So maybe it just was Switzerland who was in bad luck this year.
Yeah, last place along with the United Kingdom in the public vote, 0 points, second with the jury. I wonder if part of the difference is the televoters are more susceptible to running order. And in the running order, this was 19th after Armenia, which was, full on in your face, and before Malta, which was full on in your face. And so maybe being the soft, quiet ballad, you don't really pop out of that. You just get overwhelmed in the recap. I'm just throwing that out there potentially, whereas jurors respected the art, the beauty, etc. Um, Also, there is an element, maybe this is irrelevant, but a lot of people told me that in their country, the commentators would say, "Oh, this looks incredible on TV," but in the arena, you just see a girl on a stool and some lights going around her. So maybe the energy from the audience didn't, what's the word, cosmically transmit. Because obviously, the audience, even though we were in Switzerland, wasn't going to be as hyped because you didn't see anything. You didn't see anything in the arena. Look, we're just grasping at straws here. All we know is this: Our Girl deserved every single one of those jury points. She was amazing. And this is kind of like in an old school Eurovision pre-jury, she would have been the silver medalist. So serving classic. We move on to the country that benefited the second most from the jury. This was France, a 130 point difference. The jury ranked France third, while the public put France down in 15th, 15th with, or no, 14th with 50 points. That's a pretty big disparity. Lucy, how do you explain it?
I think a huge problem with it, and I've heard he's not the only one. It's interesting you mentioned commentators and you talk about Switzerland. Graham Norton in the UK talked about the joke that everyone's talked about, that it looks like she's got gastro issues at one point during the performance. Graham Norton is saying that on the BBC, and I've heard quite a few did make that comment. So people are watching it and taking this really serious, gorgeous song, heartbreaking song, and going at it, right? There's at least some people would have been affected by that. And I kind of resent commentators for doing that. I mean, people can make their own conclusions, but it doesn't help when they're being told that before the performance. So I genuinely think that might come into play here. It was never one of my favorites. Again, I'm not really a ballad gal, but like when I saw it, the full context of the performance, it was very well done. I thought it was really the moment when it kind of swirls around her, the cork pellets per se, it looked fantastic, and I was really shocked at the low public vote. 50 is still, I mean, maybe this is me being British, but I'd take 50. But like, if I were Louane, no, I would not. I would not be thrilled with 50, and it is a shame. She also, I was surprised the jury wasn't higher, even though it's quite a high jury score. I did think the jury would be, pardon me, higher for it too. So yeah, from a potential winner to walk out with only 50 public vote is really
And just to
shocking.
clarify for people who are maybe coming to this a bit late, she's performing in a sandstorm. It's really ground cork, and there's a moment where there's wind behind her and the sand is flying out. And everyone on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube was saying, "Oh my goodness, has our girl passed gas? And is that why all of the smoke is flying out?" I saw the phrase explosive diarrhea being bandied about, and it's awful because it completely goes against the really solemn message of the song. And once that's in the atmosphere, per your point, and once you're thinking about that, I could see why viewers might be focused on that and looking for that rather than getting into the emotion of the song like the jurors clearly did. Simon.
Yeah, you've pretty much made the best points in this. I am looking at the jury televote split, and when you look at that, the jury top five, Austria, Switzerland, France, Italy, Netherlands, only two of those countries are in the public top 10. It's like this year has been such a discrepancy between the jury and the televote in so many ways. I mean, you have Austria at fourth in the televoting, and you have Italy at 10th. All the others are outside top 10 of televoting. So yeah, but that's a whole nother issue, because I think there are general issues with the split voting that also needs to be addressed, and we'll come to that later.
Yeah, I think with France also, they may have been hurt by the fact there were just so many strong ballads, and everyone is not going to vote for three songs. Many people are only going to vote for one song. And if the ballad genre, the emotional genre is for you, you could choose Switzerland, you could choose Austria, you could choose France. And then extending it beyond ballads for emotion, you could choose the Netherlands, you know? So in a different year that was more disco and dance heavy, maybe Louane would have come out better with the televote. But you know what? That's a counterfactual. Yeah. we have to imagine. We don't know. But we move on. The country that was helped the third most by the jury, or rather the third biggest disparity from the jury, was the Netherlands. They got 91 more points from the jury. They had 133 jury points and just 42 public votes. This is interesting. This is a very radio-friendly song, and I think jurors would appreciate that. They're often music professionals. What could be looped on the radio? They would have respected the voice. The public, not giving this as much love. Where did they go in the running order? The Netherlands was 12th after Tautumetis and before Finland. Yeah, I think a lot of us thought this would be more jury-friendly, and that was borne out. Lucy.
I'm going to say something controversial
Mm.
here. I thought this was going to do worse than it did
Oh.
because the running order, that was brutal. Having to go after Tau Tomatoes, and I'm biased because that's my favorite, but that was stunning. We'll get to that in a minute. Going before Erika Wickman, God, that would not be my choice. That would not be my choice. Going between those two songs, and albeit neither of them were top 10, but both of them are super memorable. I genuinely thought this would do worse than it did. But I mean, I'm happy for him that he still got like loads of jury points. I still think it's a very good jury score. And the public vote is a bit low, and you could see he was disappointed. He was a bit like, oh, damn, when he got his result. But I actually think he could, given, like, say, there are quite a few kind of emotional songs, I don't think this is a horrendous result for him. And yeah, there were better performances, dare I suggest? But I still think it was a really great moment from him. And I think the score is pretty fair, if I'm honest.
Simon.
Yeah, well, I'm also going to bring some controversial things into the plate because Claude is a person of color, and we've just seen people of color not doing as well with the public as they might ought to be. Django from Netherlands, the same. I mean, he got a big fat zero in 2021. I'm not saying that is the only case, but now you mentioned Tau Tomatoes. They got the same televote score, 42 points, both for Netherlands and Latvia. But I thought this would do better with the public because I thought it hit a demographic which a lot of the other songs didn't. As I mentioned when we talked about it in the semifinals, this straightforward, nice to listen to pop song, radio friendly, all of that. But apparently the
Mm.
public latched more onto the more out there songs. I mean, if you look at the public top 10, maybe Greece stole a lot of the ones who wanted to go for more emotional, and Israel, of course. Um, but other than that, you have a lot of the songs that are either, fun, Estonia, Sweden, or Albania's up there, Ukraine's up there, Poland's up there in the public top 10, and you have the somber Italy at number 10. Finland is ninth. So, maybe he just got forgotten a bit by the public in the mix of everything, and that also contributed to a lower score than I think a lot of us had anticipated.
I think the staging, the color palette, it was very dark, and the clothing was dark, and I sort of, on the whole, was slightly underwhelmed by the staging. I do think it struck the emotional tone, but I do worry if the color palette, sort of was it burgundy or like a red wine, and then the
Mm.
violinists were they in black? I don't know. I expected it to pop more because I loved in his music video and in the artwork how we had like that bright sun and it was warmer in a way.
Right.
Um, yeah, yes, the bright sun, the orange. It was really lovely. In any event, we'll never know. If this had been staged in a brighter way, maybe that would have made a difference, but it did tug on heartstrings, so success there. Now, the next country that benefited from the jury, the fourth greatest positive disparity in the jury points, was the United Kingdom. They got zero, that is 0 points from the public, and they got all of their votes from the jury, 88 of them. Lucy, you are British. Let's start with you.
Okay, so I was expecting significantly less points than this going into it. I was so pleasantly surprised. All of us were, and actually, like I said, I watched with loads of casuals. They were all British. Nobody liked it. Literally nobody here liked it. I quite enjoy the song. I'm not a hater of the song like at all. I think they're really great. And I think they made good changes having Lauren sing the bigger notes, kind of rather than a big harmony at the end where maybe the other two weren't as effective at it. They made some really good changes for the final, I thought. And I was just so proud of them. Like, I genuinely mean that. I'm really proud that they were our entrant this year. And I think they did a marvelous job. I think staging, I don't even know what to say without being mean. I didn't like it, is what we'll politely say. So I do not think it was effective at all. And they looked kind of Powerpuff Girlsy. The chandelier, it's like flipping graphics on the floor with the swimmers, the low res swimmers doing
Oh
that. What
God.
was that? Why? I know there's the jumped in the pool lyric, but girl, it didn't work around a chandelier and it was low res. It looked rubbish. But I do think that affected maybe the public vote. One of my friends who was watching with me was like, I wonder if people will vote for it because they want to be in the band because it's very Little Mix, very cool. No, they didn't, it turns out. But that jury score, no, well, that's more than I expected. Okay, I was so happy with that jury score. We got a 12. Cool. We got it from Topo the Mouse, so bonus. But yeah, like I think they did better than anyone expected. I will take 19th. Ollie Alexander came 18th with a 50 something points. They got a lot more points than Ollie and got one place lower, but I don't care. I'm so happy for them that they got those jury points. They deserved them. They deserved those jury points because they were so good, especially Lauren. All of them, though, really amped it. And maybe where Holly in Pink had struggled a bit with a note here or there, which, by the way, I saw her in Phantom of the Opera. She can sing, all right? She's very good. But in the moments where she struggled in the semi-performance and stuff, they edited it to be a little bit more fun and stuff, and it worked, I think. And I'm really pleased the juries appreciated it. And yeah, we in our house we were chanting, we got points, because we weren't expecting none. So to get some points, that's a win. Sorry, to walk away from here, not even in the bottom five, great. I'm pleased.
S- Small victories, indeed. Simon.
I mean, top 10 with the juries. When has, I mean, except Sam Ryder, when is the UK going to take that as a win in these past 25 years? I just want to point out because I said it when we did the semifinals. There are a lot of women who have been downvoted in this Eurovision. Let me rephrase you. Bottom five in the televote. From the bottom, Switzerland, 0 points. United Kingdom, 0 points. Denmark, 2 points. Malta, 8 points. Spain, 10 points. So a collective 20 points for 5 songs sung by women. I am sorry to say that because all of these songs deserved better, but it seems like if people wanted to vote for a powerful woman, as I look at the top 10 in the televote, Israel and Poland and Greece and Finland. So they stole all the televote points for
Arguably
women.
Albania.
Albania also, yeah, of course. But it's like, yeah, there was nothing left. And as you say, Lucy, this was always a jury song because of their vocals, but the staging blew it. And Ace Bowerman twice in a row, 2 times 0 for staging. Maybe the UK should think differently next year. Just saying. But yeah, I love the girls, and I
The
hope that the
staging was
UK.
not good.
No, it wasn't. But yeah, those are
It
my
was
5 cents.
we've talked about this a lot in the semifinal videos. Some acts just don't fill the stage, and I just felt like way over there we had a chandelier, way over there we had a boudoir, and in between it was just empty, and it just exposes them and it puts all the onus on them. And I think if you have an emotional song, the face can carry it. But when you have an upbeat song like this, you need something to grasp onto, right? And despite having three big voices visually, this just did not fill the stage. When they got on the chandelier, it just looked awkward. It's like they were struggling to balance. It was tiny. You were aware of how small the chandelier was when they got on top of it, you know? So it killed any illusion. If that chandelier had been lowered from the ceiling and they were on it, then we can talk, right? And you'd have then you'd have some visuals. But no, this was just not it. I think the public got this right. I just don't think that performance visually was up to scratch. They sounded great though, and so they earned every one of those 88 points with those voices because they can sing. But we move on. The country, the next country rather, is Austria. They had an 80-point difference between jury and televote. The jury awarded them 258 points. That, of course, was enough to win the jury vote, while the public gave JJ 178 points, which was good enough for fourth place behind Israel, Estonia, and Sweden. I get why the jury voted for this. I honestly get it. Countertenor, impressive vocals, visually, this was a cinema piece. This was a movie, and I think they would have really respected the storytelling. It came ninth, so relatively early in the running order after the United Kingdom and before Iceland. So it would have it would have stuck out, right? Just not only for going black and white, but also for the vibe that it created. And I don't mean that VAEB, I mean that in the actual vibe. Lucy.
Yeah, I mean, our winner, right? Very deservedly won the jury. We all presumed this would happen. It was either going to be Austria or Switzerland that won the jury, and we were correct. That's the top two. The televote is actually quite high. 178 is certainly not a bad televote score, especially when you consider, and this is not a slight on JJ at all. This is, just shows how much more of a level playing field this year was compared to other years. I had a look, and this is the by far the lowest score of a winner since the jury and televote separate points era, 2016 onwards. The next closest was Duncan Lawrence of something like 498, and JJ got 432. In fact, he only had 45 more points than Alexander Rybak when half the amount of points were available. Right, so very low winner score, but it's not that JJ was bad. It was a level playing field across because there was just so much more agreement across the top. And I think that to be able to get that public score when it is that level on other songs is a phenomenal effort. And I think, a lot of people were really happy to see JJ win. It was a fantastic effort. By the way, it's a small detail in that song when he gets the boat and goes, in the live performance. That was great. I was like, oh, okay, because I don't think he did that in the semi-final, like, at all. And so it's just a small detail, but it was so effective, this rage when he gets the boat. And I was like, And I genuinely think something like that can really help storytelling along with the other bits in the performance, or the against the wind. And when you're in the arena, by the way, there was like a lighthouse light going around throughout the whole thing. I was at just the wrong level for that. I was like, every few seconds because it was very bright. But just small details like that. You saw it on camera. Every detail was thought out. How can this tiny detail add a lot to the screen? And it was so well done. And a very deserving winner. I can't wait to go to Austria next year. I'm so pleased with JJ. He did phenomenal. And I think both of those scores, jury and public, are phenomenal when you consider how level it was elsewhere.
For me, what happened between the semi-final and the final was JJ became more comfortable. I remember when he visited us at House of Helvetia, he talked about being a classical trained singer, you're not used to singing with in-ears. You're not used to having a track that you have to follow. You are more organic, in sync with the orchestra. So it's a whole new discipline for him to have to be so tight. And I think it showed in the semifinal, because in the semifinal, I felt it a bit wobbly. We always thought, okay, his vocals can carry everything through. But in the semifinal, I felt, especially in the first dress rehearsal, I felt, you are not totally comfortable with all of this. But something happened between the semifinal and the final with actually a lot of the artists. I noticed it with more of them. But for JJ especially, what I noticed was that the more somber parts, the more quiet parts, he found a level of it where he wasn't as screechy, in lack of better words, as he might have been in the semifinal. Because singing in a countertenor level of voice can be off-putting for a lot of people looking at it, because that's not something you hear every day, and opera is not something that all people would like. So for him to tone, to tone it down a bit in the somber, made the choruses more powerful, made the bigger places in the song more powerful. And I think that, gave more televote points to him that he might have gotten if it was the semifinal performance we were judging, because the juries were always going to latch onto this because of the vocals, because of the complexity of the song and with the staging. So, but yeah, well deserved, as you say, Lucy. JJ is so great and so sweet, and let's see if we're going back to Wiener Stadthalle. That would be fun.
That moment you brought up, Lucy, it made it so human, right? Because you hear this voice and you're like, that is a voice not of this earth. But then the grunt like brought us back down to earth. And I think it contributed to the storytelling of man on boat trying to find his way to shore. That was excellent. A very human moment. And I also think the styling worked so well with the song, the black trench coat, like a raincoat, but still a little fashion. He wears jewelry, so the light did catch it. The silver embellishments caught the light because there was a risk he would disappear in all that black and white. It was very dark, but no, he stood out from all these like silver metallic embellishments. So yeah, it was just very well thought through. The next country is very interesting. It is Malta, Miriana Conte. The jury gave this 83 points, while the public only gave this 8 points. That is a disparity of 75 points for giving it a disparity of 75 points. And I think a lot of us would have thought it would have been the other way around, that the public would respond to this and the juries would not. Um, you know what? Jurors live in the real world, and perhaps they would have gotten wind of the controversy if they had been researching artists. Perhaps they felt sympathy. Perhaps they appreciated the voice because she does have incredible vocals. Perhaps they appreciated the beautiful artwork, whereas the public, quite frankly, the mass public did not. And I guess within our Eurofan bubble, there was so much hype for this, so much love and support for this, but it didn't translate to the mass audience. So I'm really curious to get y'all's take on this. Why do you think jurors rewarded Malta so much more heavily than the public did, Lucy?
I think he got it bang on there by mentioning her voice. One of the best vocalists of the year, and it was really fun. It looked expensive, the staging, right? And they're there to judge a performance. They're there watching performances. They know kind of what's the effort that's gone behind that. The public might see it and just be like, kind of in a that's too much kind of way, right? And I'm wondering that. And also, Simon, like what you said before, by the way, broke my heart because you made a good point. The bottom five is all women. God, that's sad. That's really sad. So maybe that came into it too. And I really hate to say it, but maybe I didn't think about that until you said. I just think maybe it was too much for people at home. Because when women show sexuality, we're getting slated. When men show it, like Park shirtless, he qualifies unexpectedly, right? Um, and so, yeah, it's. I think that's the only ways I can explain it because she was fabulous. I do think the jury's rewarded the voice.
Some countries are just more skewed in the televote than others, and Malta has been a victim of not getting televotes for a long time now, actually. I mean, you all remember Destiny's face back in 2021. She was heavy favorite to, I mean, top five, maybe even top three, maybe even winning. And her face when she got 47 points in that final, I mean, she looked like the world had crumbled around her. And it's kind of the same case here with Mariana. They threw everything into it. They threw everything into it PR wise. I mean, they they handed out merch in every sense of the way. They got the controversy. They got the hype they wanted. But yeah, it's probably just a case of a combination of Malta's lack of televote appeal in general and a song that would always be divisive for people who are not seeing the fun side of it and just watching, oh my God, she's in some giant lips and we have legs all over the place and it's very sexual and bouncing on those balls at the end. It's like, yeah, it worked 20 years ago. I mean, Ukraine did those kind of stagings too, and it worked back then, but maybe some people have grown older and more tired of these and stagings, and that's maybe Malta's downfall. But I'm happy for her jury score. I mean, 5 points less than the UK. Hey, that's a good jury score.
That's incredible. That really is. I want to look at the running order, spots 17 to 23. So Greece's Clavia in 17. She got a total from the public of 126, so great. Sweden in 23rd position in the running order. They got an incredible 195 points. But in between was a graveyard of points. Armenia's Parg got 30. Switzerland got 0. Malta got 8. Portugal got 13. And Denmark got 2. So in between these two big televote scores, it is a dearth of love. I don't know if people were still emotionally recovering from Clavdia and emotionally preparing for Sweden's Kai, but this was a very low scoring run, and Malta came dead bang in the middle of it. You know what? I think collectively you have put it together. You know what? Maybe it was too much. Malta doesn't have any neighbors. This year just wasn't the year. And it's sad, but they should be proud of themselves because they rode a wave of hype. They were one of the acts of the year. And yeah, I hope this gives them the confidence to keep going because now they're in the final. They can focus on climbing even higher. All right. So we looked at one end of this jury helping, jury hurting kind of spectrum. I want to go to the other end now, the other end of this. And the country that was hurt the most by the jury, or rather, you could say helped the most by the public, was Israel. There is a difference of 237 points here. So the public vote was 297, nearly 300 points, whereas the jury was only 60 points. Where to even begin? I guess we should preface this by saying a number of broadcasters across Europe, including the Netherlands, including Ireland, have asked that the EBU look into the televote, the public vote at this year's contest, because they have concerns. Now, obviously, you need to let the EBU litigate that, look at the facts, look at the evidence, look at their phone lines. And so it's in many ways inappropriate for us to sit here and speculate. So I'm just saying, let's wait and see what the EBU has to say about the televote. Lucy, let's start with you. How do you explain this massive public vote relative to the jury vote?
Yeah. Um, my opinion of the song is I don't think it was very interesting. I think it's quite a dated ballad. It's certainly not my cup of tea. To be fair, I have mentioned before, I'm not a ballad kind of gal. But if I'm going for a ballad, it wouldn't be this one. I just found it really, really Eurovision 2008 brackets derogatory. I didn't think it was that interesting. The staging was good. The outfit looked good, I guess. I personally just wouldn't, if we're just going off song, I wouldn't have gone for this. I don't think it was very interesting. So I don't understand it. And I think that maybe this is where some of these conversations are happening because I don't think it is a televote winning song at all. I don't think it would be. Yes, maybe there is some of this kind of vote for Israel at the moment, and certain things that are being investigated as well, kind of with advertising things. I don't know, but I don't think it was worthy of the televote that it got. I think the jury vote. I mean, if we're taking everything out of context, I guess I thought maybe the jury would be higher this year because her vocal was good, but like the televote, I can't explain it. I don't know. I don't think it's a televote winning song at all.
Simon.
This shows the biggest problem with the split vote because although Kino still holds on narrowly to that, let's say, record of biggest split between jury and televote, they still have the 251 gap they had back in 2019. 237 is too much. And Israel is doing the same thing as last year, having too much of a split between the jury and televote that it looks, organic. I still think both last year and this year, the jury score was too low and the televote score was too high. And the problem is, as I mentioned when we talked about it in the semifinals, is that when you have the current system where you can vote 20 times, not per phone number, not per, but you can actually vote per credit card. Look, I was in Arena Plus. I thought, let me vote. I voted 20 times. But you know what? I have four different credit cards. Yes, all based in Denmark, of course. But since Denmark is the country where a vote costs the lowest, I voted 60 times for the same five countries, albeit. But I mean, those 60 votes cost me around the same as a soft drink at Euro Club, so I wasn't like ruined by it. But the thing is, as I also mentioned in the semifinal video, if you are prone before even looking at the songs, before even looking at the performances, if you're prone to vote for a country, you're going to do it no matter what. And of course, there is a big number of people out there who want to support Israel. I have seen that also online. Also, people, been saying to various news outlets, I wanted to vote for Israel. That the song was also good was just a bonus. That's the kind of thinking a lot of people have. Yes, I acknowledge that a lot of people also like the song. I think this song was better than last year, but that's just my personal taste. But the gap is too big. And now that so many of the broadcasters are asking questions about the televote, it's just and on one hand, it just fuels the discussion about the split vote. It also fuels the discussion about sympathy votes. And is that what the EBU wants? That they have to be on the back foot all the time? They have to defend their own actions all the time? Is that what they want? Is that how they want a Eurovision public to see the results? I mean, I'm actually sad for Israel's sake because this would always make them, in a bad light in terms of it's not a real score. Just as Ukraine in 2022, that's not a real score. Does the EBU want that? I don't know. I think Martin Österdahl and Martin Green and whoever is in charge of finding out need to look at this and see if this is the way they want to go. I mean, they abolished juries in the noughties, then they brought them back because the results were too skewed. And then they removed the juries from the semifinals in 2023. What did that result in? Three jury winners being the overall winners. So, yeah, Israel had vocal qualities, as you say, Lucy, a Disney ballad that maybe had been, well received 15 years ago. But yeah, in this world we are living in, there will always be a massive support for a country that's so much in the limelight as Israel is at the moment.
And we should say Israel performed, oh, sorry. Israel performed fourth in the grand final after Estonia and before Lithuania, so very early. I haven't done the research, but I would be curious to see what the highest scoring entry from early in the running order is. That would be very interesting to see.
What was Ukraine's last year?
Ukraine, when did they perform?
Second.
Eurovision?
They had to go second, remember? And they did very well. They came third.
Oh,
So I don't know
okay.
what the score was.
So clearly it's very possible to get a super high televote from early on. Um, I liked the way that white was used, sort of white diamonds, white chandelier, white water. I thought it was very effective. In the arena, it did feel like a flood was coming. When you saw the LED, I thought it looked great. And I do agree with Simon that this song was stronger than last year's, and so I expected it to do better with the televote, but not by this amount. And just to clarify, indeed, Simon mentioned the jury score may have been too low. You do have to put your name by your vote. So perhaps, given the current climate, some jurors were afraid about backlash if they had ranked this higher. Jurors are people with fears like everyone else. So yeah, there are a lot of factors you could consider in this discussion of those points. One thing I want to bring up, removed from Israel in particular, but more generally, is 20 votes per person. A part of me thinks we should have one vote, one voice, right? Force people to choose one act, their very favorite. Because if you can choose, multiple acts. A, are you going to? But like, I could vote for the UK 20 times. I'm sure that there are people who do that. What do you guys feel about this? Do you think it should be one vote per person? Do you think it be capped at three? I'm just curious, Lucy.
I don't think one vote per person would be good because then if people are going to vote Israel, it's going to be one vote. And a lot of, say you do, look, there were people online bragging they used five, six cards to vote for Israel. Okay, so let's use that as an example. If they're using five, six cards, that's five, six votes for Israel and none for anybody else, right? So I think that that's still going to be a problem. I think the thing where maybe you have to vote for three countries minimum might be the solution, or like maybe five votes because people might be more likely to balance it out. Like if you're not going to vote, basically, if you're going to vote for Israel because you want to vote for Israel rather than the song, then you could do 20, right? And then if you actively do not want to vote for Israel, you've got 25 other songs you'd split your vote between. So that's where it comes in. That's where 20 is an issue. I think one vote does still leave it out for problems, kind of just be overwhelming on Israel. But if you had to do five, or if you had to vote for three countries, like you do in Junior, then I think that that could balance it out a lot better. But frankly, they just need to sort their systems out. Don't do it by credit card. I mean, in the UK, you cannot vote on the app, right? You have to call. There's still manipulation possible there, but at least, if I couldn't do what Simon was saying about, I could only vote off my SIM card, right? I voted off my phone. I voted for Latvia, Albania, and two others. I can't even remember off the top of my head right now. But I wasn't able to go past that 20 then. Okay. So I think that's where it has to come in. Stop this multiple card thing is a key thing they need to stop immediately. And yeah, 20 is too high. 20 is way too high. Lower it, maybe five.
My fear with the you having to vote for three is like at Junior Eurovision, and I won't name the years, but people have suggested that people vote for their favorite and then they vote for songs they know won't win. And then it creates this weird result where countries you didn't expect to do well in the televote suddenly get bounced up because so many people assumed they wouldn't do well. Simon.
I don't think there is one system that can completely wipe out these speculation votes because, as I say, people will vote for sympathy of the country. They would like the song, maybe they like the singer. I mean, there are multiple options of why people are voting, but I think EBU needs to look into what would be their unique identifier. Is it a credit card? A lot of people have multiple credit cards. I have four. I just didn't use the fourth one. And I mean, I have several email addresses, so that's not a unique identifier. SIM card is not a unique identifier. But the EBU basically wants to earn money. I think the biggest problem here is now that you can vote the rest of the world can vote 24 hours prior to the show, and you can vote from the beginning, which we see now. I think a lot of people will just, the show has started, the first performance has started. Okay, good. We are 15, 20 minutes into this. I'm not going to sit here for 4 hours and wait. I'm just going to vote now. And they won't see the performances. So again, the voting system for me, and that's where I'm calling on the EBU to look into it and say, what is it you want? Do you want the dedicated Eurovision viewers to vote, or do you just want as many votes as possible? I mean, we all know that the EBU thrives off big numbers. They thrive off earning a lot of money through the vote. They thrive on engagement. So if they can say, oh, look, we had this and this amount of views, this and this amount of votes, this and this amount of stream, whatever, they're good. But as I said before, when broadcasters are now starting to ask questions, these broadcasters are the European Broadcasting Union. Literally, they are in that union. So something needs to be done. And I mean, we have overhauled this system a few times in my lifetime. So yeah, I don't have the perfect solution because every solution can be skewed in some way. But for the country's sake and for the broadcaster's sake, there needs to be more transparency into how these votes have been cast, which devices they've been cast on, and how they have been split. Because the current form of voting clearly is skewing too much for anyone to see past it.
All right, we move on. We move on. Estonia. They received 160 fewer votes from the juries than they did from the televote. And the televote put them in second place with 258, while the jury vote had them in the top 10, but in ninth position. I think for me, my takeaway is even though the absolute number of 160 is quite big, the fact is Estonia came top 10 with the juries and the televote, which I don't think a lot of people would have guessed. Public vote, yes, but I think a lot of people thought the juries would push this down. But it looked good and it was fun. And if you're not a Eurofan obsessive, you wouldn't have heard so much of the negativity from within the fandom. So I understand why this came top 10 with the jury, but this was always going for the public vote because it's so quirky and has so much personality. Lucy.
I mean, I don't think anybody thought this was going to get as many jury or public vote as it did. I mean, I think we knew it was going to do good with the televote, but 258? God, they did good. They did real good. And just to be like we were all talking about Sweden before,
Yeah.
right? They got 63 more points than Sweden on the televote. I don't think anybody predicted that. I don't think anybody would have predicted that. And they certainly would not have predicted almost 100 from the jury. So I think Tommy Cash has done such an exceptional job. I think he was like quite surprised that, we met him. He was genuinely such a humble guy, which, some people online were kind of suggesting that's not the case. He was really he was such a sound guy. And I think he would have been so thrilled with both parts of that. I mean, well done, Tommy Cash, because the staging from Istiklal, it's not that different. They just upgraded it in several ways. Like that, I think we talked about in the semi-final one the other day. The bouncing plane thing was hilarious. The fan thing, the crazy fan jumping on stage was genius. Absolutely genius piece of staging. And yeah, I don't think Tommy can complain at all. 98 from the jury, that is a phenomenal score, especially for a novelty song. So mad props to Tommy Cash because that is a phenomenal result.
Who would have thought beforehand that if you said, okay, only 5 countries are going to be both in the jury and the televote top 10, that Estonia were going to be among those 5 countries? I mean, the other ones are Austria, Sweden, Greece, Italy, and is that it? Did I mention 4 or 5? Anyway, but yeah, this was a song that for me elevated so much with the staging, and it kind of reminds me of the trajectory that Blanca and Solo had in 2023 because that looked a hot mess in the national final. But then you got to Eurovision, they kind of removed the flaws of it. They enhanced the fun stuff, they enhanced the good stuff of it. And it's like, yeah, he's never gonna be a big vocalist. But you know what? He can hit the notes, which for a song like this is good enough to make people look at it and say, hey, this is fun, and for the juries not to downvote it. Because I mean, they can look at it and say, as a whole, this looks very good, this sounds good, it has catchiness. So overall, they would have rewarded this just for the catchiness of it and not being like, oh my God, those vocals are awful, we cannot vote for this. No, because we can. They can say that, with they cannot say that the vocals drew it down, which it didn't. So that's why he almost got 100 jury points. I mean, that's 10 more than both UK and Finland. So yeah, props to Tommy Cash to making it a full package that worked both for the juries and televote.
And the next one really hurts me. So, the country that was hurt the third most by the juries was Albania. This is a 128 point difference. The televoters, the public, put them fifth with 173 points, a massive, massive score. Meanwhile, the juries only gave them 45 5 points, which was good enough for 17th place. So from fifth with the public to 17th with the juries. I'm surprised by this. Christer Bjorkman, the head of show, was very clear that this was art, this was music, this was culture. He wanted it to go last. The people loved it. But juries said no. And I do wonder if in many countries this came down to them saying, oh, we could never play this song on our radios because Albanian language, isn't as mainstream as French, or it's not as mainstream as English or Italian. And I just find it upsetting because this song deserves to be on the radio everywhere. Albanian is gorgeous. Yeah, I just heard for them. I don't want to call it bias or anything like that, but I want to say it's unfamiliar to a lot of music professionals. This type of music is unfamiliar to them, and perhaps that's why they were hesitant to give it higher marks. Lucy.
If there is one country on this continent that is useless about caring about other languages, what's the first country that comes to mind, William?
United Kingdom.
United Kingdom, honey. Who did United Kingdom give their jury 12 to? Latvia. This is my counterpoint to what you were just saying. If the United Kingdom can give Latvia 12,
That's true.
I really wish I had a solid explanation for Albania only getting 45 points because it's borderline unacceptable for Albania to get 45 from the jury. What? What? It makes no sense. That song was incredible. I personally, if I were doing the running order, and this isn't taking into account props or anything, because I don't work in that industry, honey. I don't know. I would have switched Malta and Albania. I think Albania going at the end really hurt it. Malta to me is way more of a closing song. And I know Chris wanted to put art at the end, but it hurt it. It hurt the art. And in that run where maybe the televote didn't favor it, it needed something it could favor. In the middle, 20th, I think Albania would have thrived way more there because that is my only explanation for this getting 45 for the jury. It's ridiculous. You can tell I'm passionate about this. There is no sense on this earth in Albania getting such a low jury score. I think it's really sad and they deserved so much better. But thank goodness the televote came in. And this isn't just diaspora vote, honey. No, people loved this. This was so good. And yeah, I'm devastated it got such a low jury. It deserved their best ever result. I think this deserved to beat Ronan Issue, and I'm genuinely peeved that it has not. So,
Simon.
I think this is the reverse Malta case because, as I said, Malta doesn't have normally it doesn't have a televote support. Albania has always struggled with jury support because they always showcase their own language, they showcase their own music traditions. Albania now, because I'm just taking a look at the detailed jury scores. Albania got 112. Who did they get them from? France. I mean, it's like France appreciates that, and then they got a 10 from Montenegro. So I mean, in the vicinity. But other than that, they get 5 and 4 and 3 and 1s. So when I look at the bottom 5 of the where the juries downvoted them in terms of or compared to the public vote, Israel and Estonia we already talked about. Then we have Albania, Poland, Ukraine, and for people who wanting to make conspiracy theories about juries not appreciating more Eastern European sounding music. I mean, you have the results right there. You have the results right there of more Western European trained ears, if I may call it that, not being used to hearing those kinds of music and thus not appreciating it, while they would appreciate a more straightforward pop-ish kind of song. Although, I mean, as you mentioned, Lucy, UK gave the Latvia 12 points. So did Denmark's jury, actually. So there are several cases to be made here, but I think both Albania and Poland were hurt by the fact that juries were just not into that sound as much as the public was and wasn't hyping it because they might have seen it for the first time during that jury final on Friday and just thinking, yeah, she sings well, but the song, maybe it's just not our taste and it's just not what we would expect of a grand song to be. So yeah, but I'm as hurt for that Albania jury score as both of you are.
Very interesting point, Simon, about how at the bottom of this list of who the jury hurt the most, we do have Ukraine, Poland, Albania, and Estonia, all Eastern European countries or Central East European. And at the top of this list, it was Switzerland, France, the Netherlands, UK, Austria, Malta. The top six were all very Western. On the Latvia point, I don't think jurors read the Latvian act as these are Latvians. I think they read it as these are angels. This is Inya. It felt borderless in a way. It almost felt, I mean this, I don't want this to sound strange. Like if way back when we were all pagans, maybe, right? Like it reads as like our ancient ancestors. And so maybe they identified with Latvia because it was you, it was me, it was all of us. There's something about that song that's just ancient. And it maybe tapped into something which allowed it to overcome these hurdles we've been talking about. In any case, we're going to go back to Simon's point and look at the bottom, and Poland was the country hurt fourth most by the juries, a difference of 122 points, 139 points from the public. The public gave Poland 139 points, which was good enough for seventh place, while the jury only gave Poland 17. That is 17, good enough for 24th place. This hurts. This hurts my heart because I loved Poland. I do think the voting recap segment could have played a role in this because at the end of a very long night, when your memory is not the strongest, you see a clip and there's no singing. That's not going to help you. I want to see her power, her movement, her vibrancy, her voice. While I love the dragon, that's not what I would vote for. I would vote for Justyna herself. And also maybe, again, jurors in countries said, we can't play this on our radio. So perhaps that was part of it, which is a shame. Lucy.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned our semi-final video. I thought this was going to win the televote, and it didn't, like at all. Not only because Justyna is like one of, if not the most famous singer in Poland, but like I was really shocked it wasn't higher because she's so memorable. Like, how do you forget that? Then the voting recap bit happened. All my Polish colleagues in Gdansk were messaging me. One of the things they were annoyed about was the voting recap, and I said to them, "Well, it's broadcaster choice what they put there for the recap," and they were like, "Of course it was," and they thought Eurovision did it, and they were like, "All the Polish people are angry at Eurovision for doing that." I'm like, "That was TVP, honey." They were like, "Well, that makes more sense," and I think that really hurt it because how could you not include the bit? Why wouldn't you put
Incredible.
that in? It was so good, and or even the da 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 bit. Like I'm not gonna start singing it because girl, I don't know Polish, but like it was not. They chose completely the wrong thing. The jury giving it 17. If we're going off the criteria, Justyna had again some of the best vocals this year. They should have given her more credit for the effort that went into that song and the performance, her vocal. That was not simple. That was hard work for her. And like, hey, she's also doing that at the age of 52 work.
Amazing.
But like, obviously, we're not going to take that into account in jury. But like, the fact is, she did all of that. She literally couldn't have done more. And she only got 17. Like, I'm not saying she was going to have the biggest score on jury, but going 24th with jury is ridiculous. And I don't think that was fair, really. I haven't checked. Maybe she came 11th in a few countries. I don't know. But I do think she deserved more than 17 on jury. And I thought the televote would be higher. So I was shocked by her result.
Simon.
Kind of the same point as I did with Albania. One point I do want to make is that I don't think her big efforts of controlling those vocals while doing so much physical activity didn't shine through as much on TV as they should have, if you catch my drift. Because we who were there and saw it live a few times thought this is so impressive, actually. But for a juror watching this for the first time, they just hear that very, very long note while she's spinning, while she's doing all that. It, I don't know. Sometimes it just feels like it's too easy. If it doesn't really make sense for me to say it because I know how not easy it is, but maybe Justyna made it look easier than it was, and the recap heard it and all of that. And now that I'm looking at who gave this jury points, I mean, it got a 5 from Australia. That's very random. And then a 4 from Azerbaijan. Other than that, a couple of twos and some ones. So it really wasn't on anyone's top 10 apart from those two countries. Um, and I think it just shows that if you have if you have that vocal ability and that physical ability, but are throwing the kitchen is throwing the kitchen sink as our Tom has mentioned a few times, throwing the kitchen sink and a lot of other things into a performance, it might just be too much for let's say jurors to look at, and then they won't appreciate the vocal effort, and then they won't appreciate how difficult of a staging it actually is. So I think that might have hurt Poland more than we had hoped it would.
And next up was Ukraine. They got 98 fewer points from the jury than they got from the public. The jury ranked Ukraine down in 14th, 15th, tied with Israel, actually, 60 points. And the public, of course, put Ukraine much higher, giving them sixth with 158 points. Um, I kind of get this, to be honest. I think that I don't know. Televoters could have latched on to the visuals in a way that maybe the jury didn't. I don't think that the visuals would have masked the song to jurors, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like the most mainstream song. It doesn't feel radio. You won't hear this outside of Ukraine, most likely on the radio. And if professionals are leaning towards, poppy mainstream, maybe that was part of their thinking. Um, yeah. And also, I think jurors perhaps, if there is a solidarity vote, jurors are less swayed by that. And they're more, well, they're meant to be more kind of the music. Lucy.
I mean, I didn't love this song, and in our semi-final video, I said I was very surprised it won the semi. I don't necessarily think it should have, but the fact is it did. And the jury score for this, I think there are songs that got worse points than that maybe deserved the higher points. Like even Spain, like I'm not fond of that song, but like I think it was a much neater package. Even Luxembourg and Armenia, well, maybe not Armenia, but there are countries with significantly better packages as a whole, I think, that got worse for the jury. But I mean, it still wasn't a massive jury score, but I think kind of the female voice was very pretty, and the light, and he acted it very well at the end when he brings the light in and goes like, brings it in. That was very good. But the rest of the staging was kind of not great, in my opinion. I really didn't like the color usage and things like that. And I'm surprised the jury did give this 60. I was expecting less. The televote is very high, much higher than I expected for this. Obviously, I think people were a bit annoyed at our comments on the semi-final video, us mentioning the solidarity vote for Ukraine, but it does exist. We have to acknowledge that it will exist in some element. We're not saying the entire televote is a solidarity vote. We're not saying that at all, but there is an element of it, right? Some of it, that probably has come into place somewhere. So there is a sprinkling of that, which is fair. I will never be mad at Ukraine getting that, okay? Like, that is cool with me. But I just think kind of the non-side of it, I'm surprised for any votes that didn't come from that kind of part, which there will be plenty. I don't think it should have been this high, maybe. But you know what? Like, Zifferblatt were really cool. It is a prog
Yeah.
rock song. It is unique in this competition. And if people wanted something to vote for that was very to their taste, there will be a lot of people out there that this is the exact thing that is going to hit their niche, and or at least the closest thing to their niche, because it was so different to anything else. Maybe that's why.
I think Ukraine has the same skewedness between jury and public vote as Israel has at the moment, for some of the same reasons. As I say, the public will vote for a sympathy country earlier and more stronger in if in if they're not, looking through 4 hours of a Eurovision grand final. I'm looking at who gave Ukraine the highest jury points. Azerbaijan gave them 8, and Portugal gave them 8. Azerbaijan, I get Portugal. I found out actually that has a very high Ukrainian diaspora at the moment. So I see that. Other than that, not high jury scores, but there will always be a discrepancy. The only year since this Ukraine conflict started that Ukraine has not gotten that big a difference between the jury and televote was actually in 2022, because the jury score was also very high for them. But as you say, Lucy, this was never really a jury song. It was, I think the staging lacked something. I think Danya having those vocal issues as he had also affected it. So the jurors might have watched that and seen, it's not up to par with what we want to award or reward. So that might have taken a toll on the jury score, which in the same effect will not have affected the public score, because they are more lenient to vote for a country if they have sympathy for it beforehand.
And the last country I want to single out is Sweden. They were the sixth most negatively impacted by the jury in terms of the difference. They scored 126 with the jury. So the jury put Sweden down in sixth place, and the public gave Sweden 195 points, which put them in third place. That is a difference of 69 points in this 69th edition of the Eurovision Song Contest. We all suspected that the televote would be where Sweden scored the bulk of its points, and we thought that televote margin would be huge. It was not. They did not win the televote. They came third with 195. The jury's giving this 126 for sixth place. It's a very heavy year. If you look at the top songs, Austria, Switzerland, France, Italy, Netherlands, the top jury songs, all of them have emotion at the heart, right? Every single one of those is an emotional, emotive song. Maybe jurors were in a contemplative mood this year. Maybe jurors, I thought that would be bad for the emotional songs. I thought it would divide them and, force allegiances or force you to choose, and they would poach each other's votes. But instead, what seems to happen is jurors gravitated toward the mood, and then the fun songs sort of got left behind. Yeah, I mean, Sweden only finished 10 points ahead of Latvia in the jury vote, which is very interesting. No one would have seen that coming. Yeah, I think maybe this is just a matter of the zeitgeist. You have to read the room, and the room was here for emotion, for storytelling. And while Sweden does have a story, its story is not one of tears and heartache. It's one more of fun. It's the opposite. So in a different year, perhaps if the world wasn't so heavy, maybe that fun song would have done better. I don't know. Maybe in a different mix of songs where there weren't so many serious songs, it would have done better. It's so hard to forecast, but I do know this. I think Sweden, on the whole, should be very happy, because at least within the Euro fandom, it's like, whoa, Sweden can have fun. Sweden can send incredible, songs that don't feel plastic. I think this is just good for Sweden's branding, regardless of the result. Lucy.
Yeah, I mean, massively. Sweden needed to send this. This was really important. And without going into it too much, I think it would have been really difficult for Sweden if their second place in Mello ended up going to Basel. So Sweden have got a lot of respect from the fandom for this. They have sent a song in Swedish since Birmingham '98, which was that the last year that you had to sing in your own language? I think it was. So yeah, like they needed to do this. Same with Germany, like needed to send a song in their language. And yeah, massively got some respect back. I think with the jury, something with my good friend Ewan Spence, we were discussing, and he's been so adamant all season. No, the juries are going to go for Sweden. The juries will get it. They got it in Melodifestivalen. That is a juries in Eurovision, in Melodifestivalen, they would have been in the hotbed of them rising through the odds, and it would have been a key cultural moment almost in that time. in Eurovision, a lot of the juries won't have known about
Yeah.
Summer Love Revolution. They wouldn't have known about a lot of these things. Okay. So it's a very different thing. There's no part of me that was surprised that there's a big difference. I didn't think the juries were going to go for this much at all. 126 is a really respectable jury score still. And they deserved a good score because it's a great production. The staging with it, and like we said, they took a risk for the first time in
Yes.
so long. I'm thrilled that they did get rewarded for it a bit, but I'm also not sad that they didn't win because I think kind of where a joke, I hate calling this a joke, a novelty-ish song, you know, it's still a good pop song on its own. So, you know, it deserved to do well. I think it got about the fair result, to be honest. And the fact is, Tommy Cash also had some of that novelty lockdown, and he took more of it. So,
Mm.
surprisingly, I might add, I was shocked, but yeah, I think they got a fair result.
I think Tommy Cash, that act is, yes, they're dancers, but it's very much built around one persona. Whereas in the Sweden act, you've got multiple people with big personalities going on, so maybe you don't connect as much. I think if you're solo and are offering something, you get all the credit. Whereas if you're in a group, it ends up getting divided, right? And so maybe the push isn't as strong. Sorry, Simon.
Yeah, I think this is actually the same case as it was in the semifinals, where some of the juries understood this also because of the language, and some just didn't. When I look at Sweden's jury score, 12 from Iceland, that's not a surprise. 10 from Switzerland, that's more of a surprise. But then you have 10 from Finland, of course, they are Finnish. You have 10 from Norway, hey, again, not surprising. And you have an 8 from Estonia. The only Nordic country not rewarding Sweden as much as we thought was Denmark, and then they still got 7 from us. So I think that was just the case for the juries. I remember back when we had the panel discussion at House of Helvetia, even Saturday afternoon, this is like 6 hours before the grand final. William, you asked us who will win tonight. And I reluctantly said, well, I guess Sweden is. But that was mainly because we haven't seen anyone really threaten them. But if you think back to it, there's something wrong in the betting odds when Sweden was the favorite all the way through, but that was in anticipation of Måns Zelmerlöw winning
Mm.
Melodifestivalen. And then they are still number one in the betting odds with Kai, who is a totally different act, who caters to a totally different audience, both for the juries and the public. So it always seemed like, why are they still so big favorites? Aren't there any other songs coming to snatch that crown? And eventually there was, um, because Austria got that big of a jury support. But yeah, as you say, Lucy, I am also actually thrilled for Sweden that they now have sent something that the public wanted, that the public liked. And you know, Kai have had a career since 2009, and now they have built a totally new fan base, both in Sweden, in the broadest perspective in Finland, and in a lot of other European countries. As they said to us when they visited us, maybe this sounded so that they're going on the fall will be for the rest of their lives. Who knows? And I couldn't be more happy for them because they deserve all the praise that they are getting because they are so lovely and they are so professional, and all the best for Kai and Sweden. Hey, fourth place, maintaining only 2 songs out of the top 7 since 2011. That is a crazy run of songs.
Wow. That's incredible. That is absolutely huge. Um, I want to wrap this up. We can all go around and give our final thoughts. And I'm just looking at this differential, and we often talk about juries respect voice, juries love voice. And looking at the biggest margins, it does bear out. Denmark, for instance, there was a 43-point difference. They got 45 points from the jury. They got 2 from the public. It was like the jury saying, our girl can't sing. Look at Switzerland, 0 from the public, 214 from the jury. France, 50 from the public, 180 from the jury. Even Claude, that 91-point difference. It does seem that juries do reward the voice. The story for me of this year is, well, one of them is Latvia. I just think this is incredible that the juries did their job in this case. They said we got to reward music, we got to reward art, we got to reward talent, voice, beauty, TV production. Latvia had all of them in spades. It's just gorgeous, and I'm so glad they actually are the country that benefited the seventh most from the juries, a 74-point difference, just after Malta and just ahead of Italy in that sense. So that's beautiful, Lucy.
I mean, Latvia's my story as well. Like when they got their 12s, I was jumping around. I was very thrilled. It's interesting because they came second in the semi-final, the televote
Amazing.
only semi-final, and then they got 42 in the final. I mean, maybe I'm just being greedy here, but I wish they'd got more in the televote to reflect that semi-final result. That would have been amazing if they could have got top 10. But like, I hope Latvia keep going because Dons was great last year. I don't care what anyone says. Dons deserve to qualify every day of the week. I was so pleased. Southern Lights very much deserved to qualify. They didn't, only just. But Latvia are onto a fantastic streak, and I want them
Mm.
to keep going. I just have one quick question actually for you guys. When we talk about Sweden, if Kai didn't go and removing other news stories, do you think Mons would have done better?
I don't, to
I
be
don't.
honest. I think that Monza's revolution was very much by numbers. It didn't have the same heart as Switzerland, France, the Netherlands.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just feel like Austria, if you look at the top, it was really sincere emotion. It wasn't like processed emotion. I believe all of those songwriters were involved in the writing of the song. And while I'm sure, and I know Mons did write his song as well, but I don't know. I felt like Mons' song, which was excellently staged, it was very dark, and it seemed here that the message was hope, and Austria gave us hope through darkness. Switzerland gave us hope. France gave us hope. Whereas Mons, while it's meant to give us hope, I always viewed it as a tunnel of chaos. A very scary place, actually. So that's just my 2 cents, Simon.
No, first of all, Mons might have cracked the 200-point mark with the juries, but he would have been massively downvoted by the televote because there was so much, even before all of the things in his private life happened, there was so much like, oh, not Mons again, all of that. And Sweden is always hurting with the televote. And had they sent Mons, that would have been the epiphany of why Sweden is hurting with the televote. It would have been a Benjamin and Grosser result, maybe just 20 points. So no, 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 no. Mons would not have won Eurovision 2025 if he had gone. I just want to correct myself, by the way. I said Sweden has not been out of the top seven. It is, of course, top nine because my favorite Norwegian twins got ninth place last year. But but being with Sweden and in the Nordics in general, this is the first year that all five Nordic countries and all three Baltic countries have been in the Eurovision Grand Final together. And of course, I'm thrilled for Denmark, but I'm thrilled that all of us who are kind of culturally bound together in some ways, that all of those countries were there. And I want to mention Greece as well. Fantastic result for Greece. No one really had counted on her. And I want to mention Italy. We talked about him as a
Oh,
we talked about him as a dark horse. He came fifth. Italy just
Okay.
keeps on delivering. So I think that is my that's my biggest thought and spare a thought for Spain because was she probably the most hyped of the season? Maybe it was mainly from the Spaniards, but yeah, 24th. I hope that Spain will bounce back and climb high up the scoreboard.
Can I can I chuck
can,
something in there about Spain, by the way? The reason why I think she came 24th, and this might sound stupid, but as someone who doesn't speak Spanish, I hear a song called Diva where the word diva is represented, said a lot. And I see that staging. I'm thinking she's singing all about, I'm such a diva. I don't
oh, like a
know what the
Sylvia
song
Knight
means.
vibe.
I'm thinking, oh, she's it almost came across as arrogant, even though that's not what the song is about. And
Right.
so, if you don't know what the song's about, I genuinely, that's my belief why she didn't do so good.
Oh, that's interesting. I understand your vantage point, and actually, that brings me to the final question. Do you agree with last place? Last place was San Marino on 27. Next to last was Iceland on 33. Um, I'm going to kick this off by saying yes. I think a lot of us were surprised San Marino went through, and then last place seems to fit fit. Mostly, I mean, I liked the song in the end, but the staging was just underwhelming. And I think that Vibe had a much more full package, actually. I think that was quite fun, energetic, upbeat. I looked forward to it. It looked great. The jury's blanked Iceland, is why they're so low. They had 33 televotes to San Marino's 18, but San Marino got 9 jury points. But indeed, I would also have put San Marino last. Lucy.
Um, I really did not like this song at all. To me, the da 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 bit sounds like pirate music at my local theme park. Like, I don't get it. I mean, I know it's very Italian, but to me, that's just what the vibe it gives. I really just I ironically was singing this with my good friend Danny Tregoning and Mark at Euroclub. We'd find each other and go da 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 over each other. That wasn't a positive singing along. That was a this no, pardon me. This song is in my head, and but it was like an annoying in my head, and I didn't like it at all. I think the staging was really poor. The singers with the masks, it was never explained to us why they weren't. We didn't know who they
Mm.
were. So it just came across quite cold. And that statue with the bubble gum was heinous. I hated it. So yeah, I'm not surprised this came last. I was shocked when it qualified, to be honest. But look, I think they've done a good thing for San Marino qualifying. Even being in that final is a win for San Marino if they ever get there. So fair play to San Marino, I guess.
Staging a party song without a party, no, don't do that. I mean, if you take Iceland and San Marino, the 25th and 26th place, San Marino party song, no party. Iceland party song with party. So basically, that's why they got 33 televote points. And San Marino, I mean, you know, they got 9 jury points, and you know who they got 6 from? You guessed it, Italy. Who did they get 2
Mm.
from? Albania, and the last point came from Cyprus. So in the vicinity of Italy, San Marino. So yeah, no, San Marino was a non-qualifier for me the whole time, and I'm glad that my Icelandic boys vibed their way all the way to 25th in the grand final.
I love Portugal. I really do. They beat Spain, Malta, Denmark, Switzerland, and UK in the public vote. And I don't think a lot of people would have predicted that coming into this. Some of those countries, yes, but I know our friends in Spain from Wee Wee Blogs will be like, "What?" Esta diva is still a queen of my heart. In any case, that's what I think. That's what we think. What do you think? Do these results align with your reality? Let us know here on Wee Wee Blogs.
Don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, so whenever we post our new videos, you will get notified.
And let's see if we can repeat the success of the House of Helvetia when we go to Austria next year. Who knows?
And we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.